And we'll also be joined by Miss Emily Miller of the Washington Times, who is with us in studio right now, too.
So exciting.
Yay.
Daylight hours. I've never been here in the light.
I know, right? It's kind of crazy.
I actually was a little confused in coming in from the outside.
I know. It's well, listen, I really appreciate you coming down. I know it's been an incredibly busy day for you. You were up on Capitol Hill. You were actually there in the room.
The 4-hour Senate hearing today.
Yeah. How was that?
It was much longer than expected. I didn't but everybody wanted their point in. Every senator wanted their point. I'll say I thought Wayne LaPierre getting beat up on. He did a fantastic job. I would not have been that calm. I would have been like, you're all a bunch of idiots and you're not thinking. But he, because they really had it out for him and they were going to embarrass him and they were going to mock him, and they did. And he, stayed completely straight to the people he represents, the gun owners' principles. Mm-hmm. I think the worst part was the people in the public seats. When I got there, there's a separate section for the press, and so we could kind of cut in line. But there were hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people in line, and about, I would say, 80 to 100 of the first ones got seats. And they must have been just these, anti-gun organizations must have gotten there at 6 a.m. I don't know how they did it, but they stacked the room. They're all wearing these yellow "Stop Violence Now," "Gun Violence Now" stickers and green ribbons, which I don't know what that is, but except for trees. It must be a new thing. And they were so rude, and they screamed and yelled and cheered every time somebody said something rude to Wayne LaPierre. And I'm forgetting her name, but the woman who testified, who represents the Independent Women's Forum.
Oh, Gail Trotter.
Gail Trotter. She said, I represent millions of women, and she's trying to explain why women would want an AR, 15-style rifle, to defend themselves. And she said, I represent millions of women who would. And all the women in this group started screaming. You don't represent me, not me, not me. And I, quite frankly, embarrassingly, lost all my professional cool in like the neutral or liberal or neutral press area. And I'm like, she represents me. So
really,
I did. I couldn't help it. I was just completely came from my heart. But so everybody's like, simmer down.
Yeah, it's like that's like cheering in the press box. You're
so bad.
You're not really supposed to do that. But look, here's the thing.
It was just so frustrating because it was just one point of view, and of course, it's a Democratic majority committee, and these are even though some of them are gun owners, and Leahy said he's a gun owner. They obviously have an agenda.
Well, they do, and that's the thing. We've been following your coverage of the Second Amendment and how you got involved in this. I mean, your reporting on Second Amendment issues came from a very personal level. I mean, it was your decision to see what the gun laws were like and how hard it was to become a legal gun owner in Washington, D.C., that sort of started you on this journey of reporting on Second Amendment issues.
Yes.
Am I right?
No, that's absolutely true. I mean, it was a personal experience. I was a victim of a home invasion. There were several men. And so that's why it's become so personal. That's why I reacted unprofessionally today. But when another time later in the day, another Democratic senator was really going after Wayne again on the size. Oh, actually, was going after Gail on the size of a magazine. Mm-hmm. And she said, well, if you're coming in my house and there's more than one assailant, why are you going to limit the magazine size? Like so I have to reload. And that really got to me because as this happened to me and I walked in to the house and a man was in there and he had a bunch of guys outside, it didn't turn violent, thank God. But what if it had been, they started, wanted to rape and kill me? I first of all, I've been shooting less than a year. I definitely wouldn't hit him on the first shot. Second shot, I don't know what shot I'd actually hit center mass. Right. Much less if there's several of them. So, and she actually said, Gail was great. She said to him, she goes, well, look, you're a big man. And he kind of looked offended. She goes, I mean tall. So she's like, you can't understand what it's like to be in a perspective of a woman. And I have to say, as soon as I got out of there, I got tons of emails from women being like, I want an AR or I have an AR to protect myself. And, how dare these men just say that, because the gun, it looks scary, we shouldn't have it. Well, as Gail Trotter said, when the gun looks scary, that's exactly why it is a deterrent, because they scare people. And it sort of goes back to, you and I have talked about this, when this pink gun, this idea, this concept, like, should you get a pink gun? Right. And I actually am against him. I am against them because I think when you look at a woman and you're petite, and you're a bad guy, you're going to maybe doubt if she's seriously going to shoot, if she seriously has a loaded gun in you. That's why I got a Sig Sauer. It's like, looks like there's no question. This is life,
Right.
life.
This is a gun.
I'm going to kill you.
Yeah.
I could kill you with this. So as Gail explained with the AR, that is the extra help of the deterrent is that it's scary looking. So when you walk into a home and I'm standing there with an AR holding it against you, you might turn and run. Hopefully. I mean, that would be in an ideal situation. So, I think that was her point was really appreciated, not often heard in Washington.
Yeah, no, I think you're right about that, which, of course, is why there was the hoots and hollers, while she was testifying. And I confess, as a guy, I never really considered that aspect of gun ownership. I mean, to me, folks who want to own an AR for self-defense, I talked with a woman actually earlier this week who said, I have to have a rifle for self-defense because my hand, I'm disabled in my hand. It's very hard for me to use a pistol for self-defense. It's much easier for me to use a rifle for self-defense, and I want a rifle that I can actually use, and I want an AR. Look, you could probably poll 10,000 different people who own AR-15s and find 10,000 very compelling stories as to why they bought that firearm. But at the end of the day, it's not a question of need. At the end of the day, it's not a question. It's not a question of some politician saying, "Well, who needs more than 3 rounds to hunt deer, or who needs more than 5? If you can't hit your target within 5 rounds or 7 rounds." We had the sheriff of Los Animas County, Colorado, on the show yesterday, and all 62 county sheriffs in Colorado have put out a position paper saying we don't support any additional gun control laws. All 62 of them, which I thought was amazing.
It is amazing. They weren't invited to speak at
at
this hearing today.
They
obviously.
were not. And when it came to the issue of magazine size, when it came to the issue of the quote-unquote assault weapons, they were very succinct. They said, look, not everybody's going to be attacked by a single assailant. They made the point that you did. And they said citizens, civilians, have the same right and the same need to protect themselves as law enforcement does. Yep. It doesn't matter that we wear a badge and that these folks don't. When you are your own first responder. I think the sheriff in Milwaukee County, Wisconsin, made that point when he said, it's time for you to get in the game. And he had this public service announcement encouraging people to go get trained, become legal and responsible gun owners. You are your own first responder. That's not a knock on law enforcement. That's a simple fact.
I mean, you should also call 911. As
yes.
I would know. I mean, if someone comes in my home, I know I'm going to grab the phone to call 911 and have the gun. And I sort of think, as I'm new to this community, I sort of can see where the preconceived notions are and this misunderstandings. I think there's this misunderstanding that gun owners want to shoot and kill people, and we could sort of laugh, but I think it's sincere, and I do take the time to explain to people it's my worst nightmare to kill a person. In the worst I can imagine, the biggest responsibility of being a gun owner is knowing that decision is in your hands, and you may have to do that at some point. But it's the last thing I would ever want to do. And you hope that the police can get there. You hope the person sees your gun and turns and runs, or disarms themselves, or drops to the floor, or, there's so many other things that you hope can happen. But, it's the last thing that you would do. But I'll tell you, it was really quite unbelievable what happened in that hearing today. And you must have, scraping the barrel to get the liberal police representatives. And they got this one from Baltimore County.
Yeah.
My family's in Baltimore County. My friends are in Baltimore County. There's not a lot of crime in Baltimore County. It's not Baltimore City. It's like a very safe residence. Should they bring him in to be like the law enforcement defender? Well, they also said to Wayne, Chairman Leahy said to Wayne LaPierre, we all agree that gun ownership is okay for hunting and for target shooting and for self-defense, but do you really believe the Second Amendment has to do with the government coming after you in tyranny? And there was a long pause, and there's a mumbling with the people with the yellow stickers. And I was worried, but Wayne was, held his own, and he said, absolutely. Our founding fathers, I don't think there's any question that our founding fathers wrote the Second Amendment to stop government tyranny. Leahy wasn't done with him. He then talks to the liberal Baltimore County police chief guy. He goes, how does that make you feel, knowing these citizens out there you don't know what's going to be inside that door? And he said, it's scary and it's very creepy. Are you kidding me? I mean... It's scary and creepy for the police officer to know that I'm armed for the 15, 20 minutes it's going to take for him to get there when the guy comes in my house.
Right.
I mean, the whole thing was so skewed.
Well, it was. Look, I mean, again, you've got this dividing line here between the politically appointed chiefs and the popularly elected sheriffs. I mean, we're seeing a lot of popularly elected sheriffs say, I'm not going to support any new gun control laws. I'm not going to enforce any new federal gun control laws. You can't make me enforce any new federal gun control laws. And, again, talking to that sheriff yesterday, and talking to, we've talked to, I don't know how many cops over the nearly 9 years that we've been on the air here. Before I even started this program, I did a ride-along. I had a friend who was on the Oklahoma City Police Department. I used to go on ride-alongs with them. And, one of the first things I learned is that every traffic stop, every call that an officer goes out on, they're prepared for the worst. Because if you're not, that's when the worst happens.
Yeah.
So every time you get pulled over, it's not because you may look funny or you may look dangerous or, they ran your plates and saw you got a CCW. They don't know. They don't, they have to be prepared for the worst. So every cop going up to your car is going to be prepared for you to have a gun, for you to be violent. And that's their training. Exactly. That's part of being a first responder. So that's not going to change. And by the way, if we had universal background checks, if we had an assault weapons ban, quote unquote assault weapons ban, if we had a magazine ban of, let's say, 5 rounds, that will not change. It would be if any cop walked up to a call or walked up on a traffic stop and now thought, well, everything's great because we got this gun control.
World's safe. I don't need my gun anymore. I mean, they would mace.
Exactly. They'd be living in fantasy land, and I don't think you could find a rank and file cop.
That's right.
Who would actually say, oh yeah, I'd feel a lot safer if we passed these gun control laws. I've not found them.
Right. Well, there's so many, they use the cops so much in this.
Sure.
With this cop killer bullets and, that is a complete myth. This gun show loophole that doesn't even exist. It's a matter of 4% of guns are gotten at gun shows. And of those, about 75% go through a licensed dealer and getting the background check. I mean, there's so many, that's what my series is this week, these myths of gun control that they use. And the problem is that they're using them and the public is falling for it. And I don't blame the public, but with Barack Obama and Dianne Feinstein and others using this national platform on national TV all the time,
and a lot of willing accomplices in the national media as well.
Yes, well, that's true. That's absolutely true. That troika of things is really turning polls. And I looked at a poll in my editorial today on this gun show loophole. 90% of the public right now say they want universal background checks. 90%. Now, what I would like to do is another poll. I would like to ask those 90%, do you know that 60%, how many do you think are getting bought at gun shows? Because they'd all say 40%.
Right.
Say, how many do you believe we should have gun checks if it's between family and friends? And they would say no, and that's 29%.